You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey everybody, and welcome to episode number 529 of the Mighty Blue podcast. And when I tell you that episode 532 of the show will be coming to you directly from the Appalachian Trail, you can tell that I'll soon be on my way. With just 3 more regular shows, including today, to go, I'm kind of shocked at the pace that March the 10th is careening towards me. Today we're going to meet the other writer of the Platinum Blazing book. We're no Bruce Matson world, but he co-wrote the book with today's guest, Michael Neiman, and Michael joins us on the show to talk not only about that book, but also his 2018 hike and his new book about that hike, called Hello, My Name is Sharkbait. We'll meet Michael in a moment. After Michael, we meet possibly the last of the Hike the Good Hike cohort, though there may be one other still to come. This week, Ezra Peterson introduces himself as he talks about a fastest known time on the Superior Hiking Trail with a twist. Ezra will be along after Michael. Then my accountability blog sums up the latest position I'm in regarding gear, my diet, my training. You've all been so supportive of this hike and my preparations for it that I've got into that dangerous state of mind that says, what could possibly go wrong? Believe me, I know that plenty could go wrong, and that's even before I hit the trail. But I think I'm pretty much set, so I guess we're going to find out in a couple of weeks' time, aren't we? So let's get going and say hello to Michael Neiman, or Sharkbait. Today we're going to meet Michael Neiman, or Sharkbait, one of the 2 authors, along with Bruce Matson, of the Platinum Blazing book. Michael has just released a new book, Hello, My Name is Sharkbait. Hey Michael, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Steve. Appreciate it.
Now, I follow Bruce on his 2018 hike, which was obviously your year as well. You both seem to share the idea that a little bit of luxury was a good thing. Was that the intention prior to starting the AT, or did it just happen when you started chatting with Bruce?
Well, I think we both found we had that similar style and desire when we got out. You know, we were a little bit older in our years than some of the traditional people going right out of high school or college, and we appreciated some of the finer things in life and wanted to be able to share that with others.
And where did the 2 of you meet, by the way?
You know, we met a few weeks before the trail. He was sharing some of his pre-planning things that he'd been working on. I was sharing some of my pre-planning. He had a podcast he was working on. I had a blog I was working on. And we just got to realize quickly by reading each other and hearing each other's content that, wow, we have a lot in common. We have a very similar approach to how we want to hike this trail.
It's funny, actually, Platinum Blazing, and it wasn't a thing before this book came out, but it's become a thing, hasn't it, really? People are now working out there is another way to hike the trail they hadn't imagined that even existed. But not everybody's kind about it. Obviously, online, we forget what happens online. Did you have to take any flack about it from the other hikers?
You know, I think a lot of people have their own approach and style and budgets, and I tried not to flaunt it if I was doing things that were a little bit more luxurious, staying at nicer places. You know, tried to share as much as I could. But I think most people in that whole hike your own hike mentality, they appreciated what they were doing and allowed us to do it our way. And I think they enjoyed being able to hear about some other new things they might not have considered before.
Yeah, and there must have been things you discovered while you were researching the 2 of you for the book as well, which is quite interesting. But let's get back to your hike and how you got there. You told me that your family identity was Rocky Mountains only, which is a kind of a strange expression. What was it like growing up there?
Yeah, it was. You know, my father was a huge hiker, camper, backpacker, and kind of made that the culture and identity of our family. But it was always on the West Coast. It was always Glacier National Park, the Rocky Mountains. And I didn't know that there was even an identity to backpacking on the East Coast at all until, you know, I kind of came into my own as an adult. But that was just who we were. And that was what we, you know, every vacation, it would always be backpacking or camping, and hopefully with mountains in the backdrop. And
it was your father, then I presume, who introduced you to the outdoors.
It was. My father was a huge advocate. You know, part of his job, we grew up in Minneapolis, and part of his job was leading recreational trips for the community. So he would do camping trips and biking and canoeing and backpacking. And so, you know, every year he was taking people out west to go camping and backpacking. And I'd sit at home as a young kid and hear about it and dream about wanting to do it someday myself.
You didn't want to go with him? Or he wouldn't take
I
you?
did.
Oh, right.
I did.
So,
And that's part of the fun of my story is that, I had to earn the right to be able to go backcountry with him when I got a little bit older, and then absolutely fell in love with it and realized there's so much more than what he had even shared with us. And, as I kind of took off on my own journey of trying new national parks and doing other hikes and learning about the Appalachians, was able to kind of share that back to him and bring him along on a learning journey as well.
did it bring him along, or did he stick with the Rocky Mountain only ethos?
If he was on this podcast right now, he would tell you he was definitely still Rocky Mountains. He tried the AT. It's a big part of my story. Is he came out to join me for 2 weeks, and he says he's happy going back to the West Coast.
So with that ethos, when you realized that the AT existed, what was it about it that intrigued you? Because, you all out west, there's tons of great hiking anyway already. So what was it about the AT that intrigued you? And how did you really learn about it?
I think I probably did what a lot of people do first when they hear about it. And there's just the romanticizing of this long distance hike, this going out and doing this for months on end and just living as part of the woods and part of a community. I absolutely was drawn to the social structure of it, the idea of trampolies, the idea of so much support of the community that's there. All the books and stories and blogs I had read over the years just reinforced how many people are part of the community and wanting to be able to be a part of that as well. It's just a different experience than going out and going camping in a national park. It's like a whole world surrounding just this culture of the AT.
And when you did do it, were you surprised by it, or was it as you'd imagined it would be from all your research?
I think I used the word romanticizing correctly, because that is what a lot of us do, right? We build up what this is, and then you get out there and you're like, okay, this is actually just walking, and it's walking a lot, and it's walking for day after day. I will say I absolutely loved every minute I was out there. I would love to go back and do it again. But at the same time, it is just walking, and you can do all the planning and preparing and mental gymnastics of how exciting it is. But once you're out there, you just have to be willing and enjoying walking in nature day in and day out.
Yeah, because a lot of it does suck, doesn't it? I mean, not all of it is as great as people think it is. And most of the YouTube channels tend to talk about the great days people have had. They don't tend to film on the days they've had a crappy day. So what made 2018 the moment that it stopped being a dream and became a decision?
Yeah, I had always thought I was going to do it after college. I read A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. A lot of people find their way to the AT that way, and said, "Great, I'm going to do it." Here's a guy who tried to do it. He couldn't do it. I'm young. I'm strong.
Yeah.
I can finish it.
Yeah.
But life gets in the way, and other things started happening. I got a job offer, and then another, and life just sort of takes over. And I realized, as I was in my mid-30s, that if I didn't make time to do this myself, it wasn't going to happen. You have to force it. You can't wait for life to open up and give you 6 months. And we happened to be in a great position in my family. We were living in Los Angeles at the time. My wife was doing a residency out there, and we knew we were moving out to the East Coast afterwards. And so
right.
I thought,
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, I thought, we're in LA now. We're gonna be on the East Coast. Why don't I just leave a little early? Hopefully my wife would be all right on her own for a few months, and I could just do this walk that I've been talking about our entire life, and then we can move after that.
So she clearly knew it was on your mind at some stage. And when any of us make this decision, it doesn't just affect us, of course. I mean, your wife's view was basically, why now when I need you the most? I mean, but what was the situation in terms of she had this, she was working on more education or some major training, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was doing a residency. So she was in her final year. She's a veterinarian, and, very much like human medicine, you do a 3-year stint of like deeply embedded, kind of as like doing all the hard work and late hours, and also studying for your board exam. So she was very busy, very stressed. And for me to just drop on her that, hey, I think it's the time. I think we should do this now. Didn't go over that great at first, but she also knew this was something I dreamed about my whole life. And we talked about trying to find the right time, and, a lot easier before kids than after. And slowly worked her into understanding and being supportive as much as she could.
Oh, in that case, you really need to tell us, what did you say that worked? Because to be fair, this is a conversation people do need to have, to recognize that they're going to leave someone behind who will have to take over not only the work they do already, but the work that you did before. So, yeah. I mean, how's that conversation? What was the tenor of that conversation?
I think really it was trying to express to her how little she had to worry about. Everything from her concerns about her life. I'd saved a little bit of extra money to be able to supplement her income or our income so that she didn't have to, take on a roommate or live off ramen noodles the way I would be for the next 5 months.
Yeah, why not? She should have actually mirrored your suffering.
That's right. So it's part of like helping make sure that she could be comfortable in the environment that she wanted. But then also it was, sort of the promises of being able to stay connected. And, one of the wonderful things about the AT, is there's cell service almost the whole way. So we talked every morning. She was on her way to work and I was hitting the trail in the morning, and we would catch up just for 5 minutes and just make sure she knew I was okay and where I was going next. And that helped a lot. And then I would say the last piece was, part of my journey, like so many others, was I was blogging my story every night. So every night I would, document what happened and what I did and what was exciting. And she got to live that for real. And then we got to talk about it the next morning. And so in a small way, it made her feel like she was there with me. And it wasn't such a foreign thing that I was separate.
And I know that you told me that you prepaid bills. You said you arranged meal support. Is that right? It's kind of weird.
I helped ensure that like there was backup plans for her. I wouldn't go so far as to say I had groceries planned for the next 6 months, but we had plans. When things were busy, she knew what she could do. Get food delivered. Like I said, like making sure that it was covered, so she didn't have to stress about it.
You know what? You're the first person that we've had on the show, I believe. Although people have talked about it tangentially, I suppose. We always talk about how the importance of getting support from home is, and you obviously had that support because she said yes, that's okay, you can go. But really, it's the reverse support that you're giving back there. And you said you called her every single day, because you said to me that you framed the AT as a rare long trail with consistent cell service, which is absolutely true, of course, and it obviously helped with those calls home. But do you think the ability to use your phone is always a benefit then when you're on trail?
In that scenario, to be able to call my wife and give her peace of mind, yes. I think in a lot of the other scenarios you're talking about, it probably dilutes it for a lot of people. And at times, me as well. It's one thing to be out in nature. It's another to feel like you are completely connected back home. You have social media alerts pinging you, or you don't know what a plant is. You can just Google image search it. And that does take away from some of the magic and the mystique of the trail.
Poisoning yourself on trail?
Yeah, of course. I tried really hard not to let the technology take over my trail. And in fact, there's a great story in my book where I talk about one day I decided I was just not going to use anything. No phone, no music. I was just going to sit and walk with nature for the entire day. And that was like an eye-opening experience for me of just how much, just why I was out here and how much more value there is in putting that technology aside for a moment.
Funny enough, I virtually never walk with headphones in. I like to hear that sound of nature around me. But once, I think it was about 800 miles into my first hike, I was driving myself crazy with my internal thoughts. So I put headphones in for about that 500 miles. But as soon as you take them out again, it's wonderful. It opens up the whole world again, doesn't it? In a way that headphones never really help with.
No, and if you think like that, that's why this trail was first made, right? That's why we put this whole thing together over the last 100 years, is to allow people to go out and be in the nature and be in the woods and be one with it. And sure, you can have a phone and a camera and everything else you want, but kind of takes away from why you're there in the first place.
Well, talking about taking away from why you're there in the first place, you told me that you were in HR. By the way, the Brits call it HR. We call it, what do you call it? You call it human resources. The Brits call it human remains.
Probably not that horrible of a name.
But yeah. So being HR, you planned obsessively. You said meals, gear testing, logistics, and your blog series. What were you trying to control? And do you think that you took some of the spontaneity out of the hike? Or in other words, and the reason I say this is that Bruce told me he did the spreadsheet. And he knew on day 125 exactly where he'd be, and he was on that day as well. So were you as solidly on top of your spreadsheet?
If I could go back and do it all over again, I would just get out on the trail with no spreadsheet and no planning at all. But there was a reason I needed to, probably similar to Bruce. I had things I was planning up against. I started on March 1st, and I had to move my entire home and family on August 1st. So if I didn't have a plan to do it in 5 months, I might be leaving early and not finish, right? And so I didn't hold it religiously that every day this is where I have to stop, but I did sort of plan it out so I knew at certain points in time how far along I need to be able to meet some of those metrics. And I had my father was flying out to join me, and he was flying into New York to start at Bear Mountain, and one of the things you'll find in the book is I wasn't in Bear Mountain the day he got there. And I had to find a way to get up there quickly because I was behind schedule, and then figure out how to go back and make up those miles later.
There was a line, I'm not sure if I read it in your book, so you kindly sent me a copy of the book and I've been leafing through it a Kindle as you do. You said, or you wrote down somewhere, I prepared for a lifetime. They bought gear last week and they're fine.
Yeah. It
is true, isn't it, as well?
Absolutely. I spent 15 years picking out every single piece of gear that I thought was perfect and precisely updating it as needed and upgrading it. Other people decided the weekend before, went to REI, bought all their stuff and hit the trail. And guess what? We both had a great experience and most of us both finished. And I wouldn't say any of that obsessive passion I had made me more successful by any means. But I did enjoy it. It's part of who I am.
But you know what? I think I shared this with you the other day, and I'm going again next month, in fact. And I've been preparing in a way I've never prepared at all. So what part, even though you say you may have overdone it, what part of your preparation genuinely paid off, do you think?
Yeah, there were a couple things that I took chapters from my dad's way of thinking. And that was basically always test out everything before you're there, because once you're out, there's nothing you can do. I have a story years ago, one of my first backpacking trips. I had bought one of those freeze-dried meals for dinner, and I had gotten, as a dessert, I had gotten a bananas Foster dessert, which I had never eaten before, but I thought I would enjoy it out on the trail. And I took one bite and it was miserable. And I couldn't stomach it. So then I packed it up, put it in a bag and carried, the half pound of bananas Foster in water for the rest of the trip. So I wasn't going to make that mistake again. I field tested all of my meals. I planned out all the meals. I had prepackaged to do drop boxes. That was another way my wife was supporting me, was she was sending drop boxes, once a week or so for me. And I also, fortunately, living in Southern California, was able to take advantage of the weather and get out and field test my gear. So I did 2 or 3 prep hikes and overnights to test out. I had never used an underquilt before with my hammock. Wanted to test that out, and I had never really tested a alcohol stove in cold weather. So I was like, how much will this really hold up? And I'm glad I did, because I learned a lot early on, even though I didn't learn everything, and I still made mistakes out there with gear and had to replace it like everyone else did. But I felt confident, and that helped my wife and my family feel confident too. Yeah,
I think it's important. The people back home who are worried about you constantly, I suspect, that you've got this. You know what you do, you know how to do it. And you found a tramley, which is I think quite unusual. You found a tramley on day 2. And you stayed with them until Hot Springs. What bonded you that quickly? And were you actually looking for a tramley, or did it just just happen?
Yeah, I think like everyone, I was sort of hoping for it. That's not true. Maybe not everyone wants it, but I wanted the social experience. I was hoping for a tramley. I had a couple friends that had joined me for the first few days, and we were very social, just the 3 of us in general. So we found other people that were, similarly social. And day 2, we were staying at
Mountain.
Yeah, that's right. And we had run into one individual, a guy by the name of Huevos, and he was the first person we met, and we liked him, and we're like, hey, we want to meet up with you again later. And then the next day we caught up with him again, and he had met 2 other people and brought those people, and then all of a sudden, without realizing it, we hiked together for a couple of days, and this became the Tramily, and that group went all the way through Hot Springs, and they kept going. A lot of them kept going on their own afterwards, and I ended up moving on to try to catch up with some of my planning.
And it's funny, actually, and I've been thinking about this since you told me this, you got into a little group. Did you find yourself in a particular role in the group? Because one is often the planner, one is the sensible one, one's the idiot, which one are you?
Well, I thought I was the planner, and then ended up being the idiot often. Kind of the story of my trail name is just like how Nemo the fish in Finding Nemo gets lost on a journey. I was getting lost quite often, but I also felt like I should be the leader and I should be in charge and leading the way. So I was leading us always down the wrong path as well. But they were a little bit younger than me. Most of them were in college or right after college, and so I felt like I had this experience in life I could share, but very quickly those dynamics break down when you're out there. And it's just a matter of, people that, have similar hiking styles and similar interests. And that's what brings you together.
It's a big equalizer. No question about it. You mentioned you were in your mid 30s when you went.
I was 34 okay. 37 when I went.
And you caught a blizzard in the Smokies, having to spend, I think it was 3 days in Gatlinburg. That is a heck of a long time to spend in Gatlinburg, isn't it?
It is too much time.
It's about 3 days too long.
Yeah, we got lucky that we were able to even take the road down because shortly after we got to Newfound Gap and we had a shuttle waiting to take us down, and they closed the road shortly after that, and they didn't reopen it for 3 days. And we had some friends that hiked down the whole trail from Newfound Gap. I think it's like 15 miles. They walked all the way down to Gatlinburg just to get out. We had heard stories of other people that just basically just shacked up in the bathroom there at Newfound Gap, or just tried to force their way through. But it was 18 inches of snow in some places.
Wow, yeah, that's a dangerous thing to do, to force your way through it. Mind you, I'm not terribly sure that staying overnight in a bathroom would be my idea of a good day. I might even prefer 3 days in Gatlinburg for that. How about that?
At least it's warmer down there, yeah.
And you said you were on a deadline. You had to finish by August the 1st, I think it was.
Yep.
But that was because you were moving home?
We were moving from Los Angeles to the East Coast. So
we had excellent. So you let your wife pack up everything back at home, and then you came back in time just to drive over.
I will say I had a little bit of a contingency in there. I finished on July 24th, just enough time to get home and give a couple days of help packing. But going back to like giving her the ease of mind, we did coordinate to have some people pack up things for us and do the bulk of the work.
So how did that deadline shape your hiking choices then? Were you compromising on things you actually wanted to do?
Oh, absolutely. Especially as I started to fall a little bit behind on, my plan, if you will, because, meeting people and family and others that I wanted to stay with. I tried my best to do everything I wanted to do. You can't do it all. I remember there's one story. There's this wonderful shelter in Massachusetts, and I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head, but there's a caretaker there that makes pancakes for people in the morning, and there's canoes you can take out into the lake.
Goose Pond or some Upper Goose Pond?
That sounds right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I had planned to go there. I was so excited to go there, and I missed it. I couldn't fit it in because I was going to walk by early in the morning. And so you have to, miss some stuff if you're going to force yourself into a plan, but you pick and choose. It's not like any of them are bad experiences. I also got to meet the cookie lady, who I know has since passed, but I got to meet the cookie lady and stop there, which wasn't on my plans or thoughts at all, and just sort of was able to work out. Yeah,
you got to be open to whatever the trail gives you, haven't you? Really, and you can't pick and choose exactly everything. And so you moved on from your Tremblay, because you had to move on a bit faster. And for a while, it was one person for a week, then another. What do you think that taught you about trail relationships? And what do you prefer, going by yourself or going with one person or a group?
It took me a while to be comfortable going on my own and with one person. If I think back to what my history was before the AT, it was these big, large family trips or large trips that my dad would plan that would have, dozens of people there. It was always a big group. So to mentally switch my mind to, no, you can just go by yourself or go with one other person. That took a shift in thinking, but I loved it. When I found somebody, that was hiking at my own pace, we'd hike together for, 3 or 5 days. And, I was one person I hiked through the whole Shenandoah National Park with, another person I did the section prior on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and another person I did, most of Pennsylvania with. And it was nice to have somebody there to kind of transition from the fully social group to on my own. But then by the time I was in mid Pennsylvania, I was fully on my own and very okay with that too. Just get up and hike and get through Pennsylvania as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing to do, actually, to make your own rules when you go. I'm going to go by myself this year, although I know a number of people can come and join me. But they're joining my hike, and I'm going to hike at my pace because I've got the whole thing to do. So I can't be in a position of hanging about for people or having to hurry up for people. I'll be going at whatever my pace is. So you said you went fully solo from Pennsylvania, but you had occasional visits from friends to hike with you. Was that when your father came out?
Yeah, very similar to what you said. So I had offered up, again, to give my wife some ease of mind. I'm going to offer up to people to join me whenever they want and try to coordinate. I put together a blog post at one point that was like, here's all the airport you could fly into and shuttles to meet me if anyone wants to. So I had 2 really close friends join me for the first 4 days through Blood Mountain. I had my sister and her family met me a few times throughout Virginia. My dad met me for 2 weeks in New York. My sister's family came out again for the White Mountains. And then I had 3 really good friends who had been my backpacking buddies for years came out and did southern Maine with me. which was very eye-opening because Southern Maine is no joke, as you remember, I'm sure.
Yeah, you think the difficulties are over when you leave the White Mountains.
Yeah,
and that's not true.
Even close. Yeah. Not even close. So that was super helpful. And to your point, like I had them join me on my hike and at my pace, and I had to slow down a bit for my dad, which was, something I was more than happy to do.
Of course you would be, yeah.
Yeah, but with other friends and family, I said, join me, come on and do it with me. And I'm doing about 20 miles a day. Do you think you can keep up?
I got to tell you gave me, because this is not video, this is audio. I choked up a little bit then because you said you had to say that because you're with your dad. I would love to have done a day of this with my father. This passed years ago now, but yeah, the thought of actually doing something with your dad, that's a very, very special thing. So who did you summit Katahdin with? Was that with family or friends, or was it by yourself, or were there just a bunch of other finishers?
No, I came together with another tramley again at the end, actually. So I had met up with a few people before the 100-mile wilderness. So it must have been coming.
Well, people meet up in Monson, don't they? They meet up at Shores, don't they, generally?
We had met up. It was a day or two before Monson. We ended up in Monson, and we were all in Monson taking a zero together. And we decided, hey, let's just do the whole rest of it together. So there was a group of about 10 of us that did the last section of the trail up through Katahdin. And my summit photo, I've got about 50 of them, like everyone does. A lot of just me, and then some of this big group of 10 that felt like a tramley, even though we only spent a week together. It was great.
That's a long time. In trail years, that's quite a long time.
Yeah, it very much is, especially when there's nothing else in the 100-mile wilderness but you, right?
I liked it though. I really liked that.
Oh yeah. That's one of my favorite places on the whole trail. I'd go back tomorrow.
So your new book, you've described it as a novel, haven't you? But it's really a memoir from that hike, isn't it? And how did you come to the conclusion that it would be better as a novel? Is it the pacing, or is it an amalgamation of characters, or what?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. So I like many others, I've read so many different memoirs and books that people have written about the trail. And there were two things that always stood out to me about other people's books. One is that they usually spend a lot of time up front, get a lot of content in before Virginia, and then they rush to the end. Bill Bryson is a perfect example. Half of his book takes place in Georgia and North Carolina, right? And then he quits at the end. But then there's others that their books are just very introspective, very like self-discovery of me, just inner monologue, talking about how I transformed personally as I walked. And those are wonderful for another reason. What I really wanted to do was to take a book that could tell the whole story of the whole trail, end to end, almost like a guidebook for people who want a guidebook, but also be a fun story that can be true character development, true dialogue, true thematics that make it more than just about hiking the trail, and make it a fun experience for someone who's never even laced up boots can read this and enjoy. And that was what I was going for. And I want it to be, kind of fun and mysterious, like a mystery novel. Like my pacing, that chapters are very short. They're 2 to 4 pages. They always take a hook to get to the next.
Yeah, I
I took that from like the Dan Brown style. If you've read the Da Vinci Code or his books, of keep it short and keep people wanting more. And then it makes it a fun read. You don't feel like the weight of 2,000 miles, just trying to get to the end.
And to give some people an idea, you told me it's 98% true. Have you told people that they were, I don't know, 1/6 of a particular character? I mean, how does that work?
I did. So I have a disclaimer in the front. I combined a lot of people into one character or stories together. And I've shared with all of them that I could to say, hey, I hope you find yourself in the book. By the way, you should look for this name because this name is you. So if you see Gandalf is you, but it's also this person and also this person, kind of thing. And I wanted people to know they were in it, even if they didn't see their actual name. And one of the ways that I did that, I think really well, even though, like I said, it's 98% true, is the people that meet me in the beginning and the people that meet me in the end, they're not the same people in real life, but for the story, they're the same characters. Sure. And that works really well.
Sure. That's an interesting concept. And I can see how different a book, most people's book would be if they wrote it that way. So, yeah, that's quite interesting. And you said you used Bill Bryson's Walk in the Woods as a model and a counterpoint. What did you want to exactly. What did you want to keep and what did you want to fix?
So I wanted to be able to have it fun, have it be like characters that you'll remember and that you'll care about. So, he's got his best friend his friend Katz that comes out to join him. I've got my dad. My dad character in this book is one that everyone is going to love. He's just that kind of fun, memorable person.
Hang on. Is your dad completely true, by the way?
Oh yeah, you'll see
your dad, right?
It's verbatim the things that he would post. See, he posted comments on my blog every morning, thinking he was having a one-on-one conversation with me, cool. And I took those and put them right into the book, and he's loved it as he's been reading about it. And then the counterpoint was really, I wanted it to be the full end-to-end journey. I didn't want to rush the end. I wanted people to experience Vermont. I wanted people to experience Massachusetts and Connecticut and give them something more than just a quick pass through. So I wanted to have that be different, and I wanted it to. I wanted to avoid overly unnecessary drama. I think both Bryson and Cheryl Strait is another example. The way they get people to read their books is there's this very intense dramatic moments. I think with Cheryl Strait, it's her kicking her boot off the mountain and she doesn't have any boots and she has to walk another 10 miles. I have drama in there, don't get me wrong, but I think most people will say it's relatable drama and it's fun to read and watch and doesn't feel oversold.
And I know that you kept a journal to record your hike, hence the book. Did you go out there with the intention of writing a book? Because you've been doing the blog, so was the blog almost practice for the book?
I think in the back of my mind, I had always thought maybe I'll turn this into a book like other people because I'd read so many versions of the same thing from others. And then as I wrote, every day, I had about 1,000 people reading my blog every week. I got a pretty good following, and people kept saying, you should really turn this into a book. You have a great story. Why not make it a book? And I always thought, as I kept hiking, I thought, man, I think there is something here. I think there is a story. It took me a few more years to put that down on paper, though. Yeah.
I'm wondering, I said, tell me about that. I mean, I presume you've still got a proper job back in HR.
I do.
So it's tough to spend the time actually writing a book anyway. Is that why it took 8 years?
There's that, the corporate job and things that are keeping me up. I also had 2 children in that time.
Oh, so those little things, yeah.
So, my writing time was between about 10 o'clock and midnight a couple times a week to try to actually get this. Now, when I first finished the trail, I wrote Platinum Blazing with Bruce, and that was, I think we got that out by the spring of 2019. So it was about 6 or 9 months after the hike. Right. And that got my itch going of me wanting to do it. But I also wanted to hone the craft even more and get more technical in my writing and to learn about it. So I kept reading and talking to consultants and experts and friends that were in the industry and put together my thoughts over time. And then finally, 2 years ago, I finally said, I'm going to actually do it, and sat down and wrote it out.
Now, your wife was reading your blog, and now she's read your book, I presume.
She has, yeah.
What does she think about it?
She loves it. She said she wasn't going to, she said she wasn't going to read it until it was done. And I said, well, if you don't like it, once it's done, it's going to be published anyways. So we're going to be in trouble. That's right. No, she liked it. And she likes hiking. She doesn't like camping. If there isn't a bed and a bathroom at the end of the day, then she's not, it's something she's interested in, but she said she loved it. And it was hard for her to put down, and she enjoyed it through the end.
So you left your lovely wife for 6 months to go and do this hike. Are you one and done now? Now you've got these kids, at least until you're older, and also that carries on with what you're going to do in terms of writing next. Are you going to do another hike and then write about it, or are you just going to write something entirely different? Especially now you've touched on the novel idea.
Yeah, I definitely have another book in me already. I've got an idea for one that doesn't require another hike, but it's still within the same theme of hiking and backpacking and some of my characters from this book. But I loved that trail. I would love to do another long distance hike. I've talked about doing the Pacific Crest Trail maybe as a next one. But to your point, I would need to wait a little bit at this point. The kids are still really young. I want to be able to spend as much time with them. And then when it's in, maybe in a later point in life when I can step away again. But to my earlier comment, can't wait forever. Life is not going to make the time for you.
All I would say to you, don't wait till you're 73. Because going at 73 is a whole different thing, let me tell you. So where's it available then, Michael?
Yeah, you can find it anywhere. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Any local bookstore can pick it up and sell it to you as well. I welcome people to take a look. They can go to my website, helloneiman.com. Has all the information there. Where to
which
find
is which is a Seinfeld reference, I know, because I never knew Seinfeld until I came to this country, and my girlfriend and I binge watched it about a year ago. And Hello Neiman really made both of us laugh about it. Actually, it was a really great website.
It does have the Hello Neiman brand, if you will, has come from a few things. Seinfeld was one one of them for sure. And then you can see part of my story is hello, my name is stickers that I would leave in the journals as a calling card as well, which
Nice.
is how we got to hello, my name is Sharkbait for the title.
Nice. Okay. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. I'm going to put all the links you sent me in the show notes so it's clickable. And I hope the novel goes well, and I hope you enjoy writing for the rest of your life.
Thank you. And hey, good luck on your trip. I can't wait to follow along with you as you get out there again.
I appreciate that. Okay, man. Take it easy, okay?
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye. As I said, Michael sent me a copy of his book, and since we spoke, I've read a bit more of it. It's good, and the novel aspect of it is intriguing to me. Michael was really proud to have his dad out there with him, and I can totally get that. It must have been great for his dad too. And that website name is a winner. HelloNeiman.com. Look how my cultural horizons are expanding since I came to America. 20 years ago, I would have had no idea that Hello Neiman was anything at all. You live and learn, I guess. I've added links in the show notes if you'd like to check out more about Michael and his book. I hope it does well. We had a few new members, donors and supporters this week. Anne-Marie joined as a member. Jim Fair sent a donation, and I realised that I'd received a generous donation a couple of weeks back from Denise Van Etten, and I forgot to mention it and thank her. So thanks, Denise, and everybody who's stepped up to support this show, in some cases for several years. And don't forget to join our Facebook group, Off Trail with Mighty Blue, if you've been a donor to the show. Your support is always welcome. Now I want you all to meet Ezra Peterson from the Hike the Good Hike. Here's Ezra. We've got Ezra Peterson on the show today as our next member of the Hike the Good Hike cohort. Hey, Ezra, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Nice to meet you. So, and I can't explain this, you better do this. So tell everybody what it is that you're trying to achieve this year.
Yeah, so this year I'm going to try to hike the Superior Hiking Trail up in Minnesota, but I'm going to attempt to set a non-binary FKT, which is a fastest known time.
Okay. So let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, let's clarify things about you first. You were born a woman, and you transitioned to a man a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And you don't. I've referred to you as he,
Mm-hmm.
but you're quite relaxed about any of that, I think.
Yeah.
So. Is there a record already for a non-binary record, and how does it differ from the men's or women's record?
Yeah, so right now there isn't a non-binary FKT, and I think just differing that from men's.
So you're definitely going to set it.
Yeah.
Well done, you.
Yeah, as long as I finish, I'll set that record. But I guess just like in general, like for non-binary people and transgender people specifically, especially in sport, it's just become a really big political issue. And I just want to be able to show other trans people and people that identify as non-binary that this FKT space is really accessible right now, especially like there aren't very many people who have gone out and set non-binary FKTs. So there's a lot of room for growth in that area specifically.
I think that's particularly cool, by the way. So, and I confess, and I said to you before we actually started recording, I'm kind of outside my comfort zone here because I don't know that I've ever interviewed somebody from the non-binary transgender community. I may well have done and wouldn't have known it.
Uh-huh.
So how do you describe yourself right now as a person and as an athlete?
Yeah, as a person, I would say I identify as non-binary, transmasculine. So like I said, I grew up as a woman. I competed also competitively in college as a woman. And, live my life that way for 25 years up until I kind of came to the conclusion that, this isn't the right, space I want to be in. I don't feel comfortable in this way.
Sure.
And just seeing a lot more representation throughout the pandemic. And since then has really helped. And like other athletes like Nikki Hiltz and like Riley Brady being non-binary and competing in competitive track and field for the U.S. or like top level ultra running has been really inspirational to me. So yeah, I guess for me, identifying as non-binary and transgender is really important. Just showing other people that transgender people also are here and we're in this sport and there should be a space for us. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting though. I think that's interesting, and I think what you've done, saying the record you're going for is not a man's record or a woman's record. You're going for the non-binary record, so you've got your own lane, and you're very comfortable in that, and good on you for that. And how do you define yourself though as an athlete? Because you do ultra running, don't you?
I do, yeah. So after I graduated college, I moved out west to Colorado. So I got into trail running out there in Steamboat Springs. And I really just fell in love with the trails and really got into the ultra community out there and volunteered at Hard Rock that summer and just spent a lot of time in the mountains and meeting other ultra runners and stuff. And I just found this kind of new sense of freedom in the mountains. And I guess for me, I still describe myself as a runner in general, ultra runner, and also just like a long distance enthusiast, I guess, like trying to explore the outdoors in whatever way that I can. So that's how I would describe it.
So I'm not going to dwell on it forever, but it's fascinating for me. This is, how has your relationship with the outdoors developed over time as a non-binary transgender person? Because there must have been moments when the outdoors didn't feel especially welcoming, or maybe it's always been a place you do feel welcome.
Yeah, I think growing up, my family made it definitely welcoming to me. Like, I have two other sisters. So my dad, like when we were younger, he was a hunter. So we got into hunting when we were young. And that was kind of my first like introduction to the outdoors, and also like growing up cross country skiing and doing other like activities with my family. So just being able to like be in the outdoors and kind of not have that gendered kind of stereotype around those activities. Like hunting is generally seen as like a man's thing. But for me, that was never an issue. And I think a lot of the way that I've grown up and the way that I feel comfortable is just a testament to my family being supportive and, fostering that spirit of individualism and also just being comfortable in my body and how I feel.
Sure. So what do you wish that more people understood about trans and non-binary folks in the outdoors? I mean, I would see you on trail and say, there's a guy coming along, it's Ezra, hi, how are you? Mm-hmm. And you could tell me you're non-binary or not, and I will tell you I'm not, but that's fine. So what do people perceive it to be? And what do you think that is an assumption? What assumptions do you think they make that may be wrong?
Yeah, I guess in general, people just with transgender and non-binary people, I think like a lot is just misunderstood about the community in general. Sure. There's just a lot of misinformation that people who are transgender are just doing it for some sinister reason, which is not the truth. But especially in the outdoors.
Shocker.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I guess in the outdoors, it can be one of those things where for me, transitioning, I've actually like gained a lot of privilege as like a white man. I've noticed things specifically like people give me more credence when I'm at work, like they respect me more. But for other people,
oh my God, that is awful.
Yeah,
I mean, it's great. Sorry, it's great that it's bloody ridiculous that that's the case.
For sure, yeah. So I've definitely noticed things like that. So just in general, I think people also who are more visibly transgender, it's like definitely an obstacle, especially in this climate when you're out on the trail or just in general, like out in public, and you're wondering like, is someone going to notice me, or is someone going to say something to me if I go into this bathroom or something like that. Sure. So just like having that visibility on trail, I think is important. And that's why I'm vocal, especially now that I pass more as a man. Just letting people know that I'm transgender, I think is important. Like doing this hike and everything, bringing the community into awareness that other trans people are out here, even if you don't know that. And there's a place for us there too.
It seems to me that you feel that visibility and representation matters to you in outdoor spaces. And I kind of understand why, because it's relatively new for a lot of people. And, forgive us old white guys, old fat white guys for feeling this way, feeling it. And I don't feel bad about you, towards you or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But do you hope one day that this isn't an issue anymore?
Yeah, definitely.
Because it would be so much easier for everybody if it wasn't an issue anymore, wouldn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why I'm so vocal about my identity, is just because eventually, like we're all striving for a world where identity shouldn't matter, because we're all treated equally and we all have access and accessibility to these trails and to the outdoors and to the basic needs of human life in general.
Sure. It makes a lot of sense to me. So why the Superior Hiking Trail?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I
nice.
have a lot of background and family in Minnesota and Wisconsin and in the Midwest in general. And then this last year, in last May, I hiked the Superior Hiking Trail as my first through hike officially.
Right. How was that?
It was a lot of fun. It was really cool. I was alone for basically the whole time. I did it kind of in the off season for that trail. A lot of people like to do it in the fall when the leaves are changing, when it's like super beautiful. But it was honestly like amazing. And I loved being in the outdoors and just being able to take in that kind of scenery, because I think it's overlooked a lot too. Like the Superior Hiking Trail in general isn't one of the bigger known through hikes, I guess. But I think it's like,
well, you can't see, but to my right, I'm looking at it now. One of my listeners sent me a beautiful map of it.
Oh, really?
Absolutely beautiful. It had to be cut in two because it's pretty much straight up, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it looks absolutely beautiful. And how long actually is the trail?
It's about 300 miles.
Right. And so when did the idea actually of doing an FKT come into your mind?
Yeah, so I think when I first started thinking about doing the Superior Hiking Trail last year, I was like looking into the stats and everything on the FKT website. And I was like, there's no non-binary record for this or anything. So I was like, well, I'm not going to try to do that on my first one. I was like, this is my first through hike. I'm just going to see how it goes and push myself, but not, still try to get the through hiker experience and stop in towns and things like that. So then after I finished it, I did it in like 15 days and I took a 1-0. So I was like, I feel like I could, do this in 10 days or less, and I could
be able
to set a FKT.
Well, look, my plan is always to try to interview each of this cohort halfway through the hike. So I've got to catch you 7 days into the trail. So we'll have to work on the logistics about how that's going to work, because God knows how it will.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you come from this ultra running background. Does that experience prepare you for an FKT attempt? And that's not as stupid a question as it may sound, because hiking is different to running, isn't it? So tell me, what do you think you're going to take from your ultra running background to help you with the FKT?
Yeah, so I think with ultra running, what I've learned a lot through that is just being able to push myself, even when it's like, you're 10 hours into it and you're really going hard. And also being able to fuel, like being able to eat and drink and know what my body likes and what it doesn't like. I've really learned a lot through ultra running about my body. So I think that helped me a lot in my first hike of the Superior Hiking Trail. But yeah, I think just being able to have that like long distance mindset really helps, because ultras are long and they're really grueling on the body, as is a through hike. But obviously there are differences. And I think a lot of people don't know the differences between the two because you come from one or the other. So, but yeah.
You're about to find out.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and they obviously demand a sustained focus and resilience. How do you expect, or rather, what do you expect the hardest mental moments to be?
I think being able to manage like sleep deprivation, because that's kind of something that I haven't really had to deal with too much, because obviously when I did my first through hike, I was getting normal amounts of sleep every night and everything. So it wasn't much of an issue. And during my ultra races, I haven't ever had to go more than like 20 hours or so. So it's never really been too much of a problem where it's a
people can see my face now. I'm thinking, oh my God, what a nightmare.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's one of the big things. And then also just being able to handle being alone and everything too, after pushing myself that long is hard. So being able to manage that emotional stress.
And what does the support from Hike the Good Hike mean to you at this stage? Is it important to you, this support, and to be on this platform?
Yeah, it definitely means a lot to me. Being able to have their support and like just the platform in general to speak about my experience and being able to advocate for other non-binary and trans people means a lot to me, especially in this current political climate. And obviously also being able to have the gear has also helped me a lot, just financially. It helps me a lot. So I really appreciate what they're trying to do and what they're trying to advocate for with mental health and using the outdoors as a tool for that.
So beyond the record itself, what do you hope that this FKT, because you're going to do it, what do you hope that this FKT represents?
I hope it just represents that there's just a space for trans people in the outdoors and through hiking and in running in general. Just because sport in general, I think, should be for everybody. And FKTs and through hiking, I think, is a really unique way to enjoy the outdoors and to also learn a lot more about what you can manage mentally. Especially like in this time, mental health is super important. People are going through a lot right now, especially young people. So I just want people to know that, there are other things that you can do with your life that are really important and that can really help you individually. And you can also help others by sharing your story. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this.
And talking about stories, your plan is to share this journey through long form writing and social media.
Mm-hmm.
I know that is important to Jesse and Mike at Hike the Good Hike because they're all about the stories that can come from this year's cohort. Why is storytelling such a core part of this project, do you think?
Yeah, I think storytelling really just helps other people relate to the experiences of individuals and understand and empathize with what they're going through, and also relate that to what their life struggles are and what's happening in their situations. So I think storytelling has always been throughout history like a really important thing. And
of course,
yeah, just, continuing that tradition and, advocating for our outdoors and our trails to stay wild and stay within our public domain. So,
well, as I said right at the beginning, I don't know whether I've interviewed a non-binary transgender person at all. I just have no idea. So for someone, but some may be listening. So someone who is trans or non-binary, who's curious about the outdoors but hesitant, and a lot of people are, I know. What do you want them to hear from you?
I just want them to hear that you can do this. Like, this is a thing that is possible.
You can definitely break the record.
Yeah.
Pick one there isn't one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of FKTs out there. There's a lot of trails. Go find one, because there are a lot of men's and women's FKTs, but I have yet to see a non-binary FKT. So there's a lot of room for growth in this sport. And even just if you're not looking to do anything competitive, just getting outdoors and doing a through hike can really be transformative. The people you meet along the way and what you learn about yourself can just change a lot and can be really impactful.
Well said. I totally agree, by the way. Well, look, Ezra, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing this with us. I can only wish you well with the FKT attempt, because it looks like you can do it. But I hope that we get the chance to re-engage when you're halfway through and then later once you're done. So I wish you all the best. And by the way, when are you starting?
I'm hoping to start, I think, sometime late May. I'm still kind of up in the air. I was thinking like kind of late spring or early fall, but I'm kind of leaning towards spring right now. So. Okay,
well, look, stay in touch.
Yeah.
I'm going to get your phone number when we hang up here, and so I can make sure that we can reach out, and I know roughly exactly when you're starting and roughly when I can speak to you, okay?
Okay.
So have a great time out there. I know you will, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, man. Take it easy.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. What a thoughtful young man he is. He's gone through a major transition in the past couple of years, yet he's proud of who he is, he loves the outdoors, and he wants to test himself on a tough trail. As I said, if he gets it done, it will be the fastest known time for a non-binary person. So I loved his attitude to that without involving himself in the nonsense politics around that issue. For that, he deserves everybody's respect. I hope you all agree. I'm looking forward to catching up with him sometime later in the year. Finally today, my accountability blog is tying up a few loose ends, and I still haven't packed my new backpack yet. I think a psychologist might have a field day with me about that. What do you think? Here it is. Hey guys, the time really seems to be speeding up for me, with only 18 days before I leave for Atlanta. I kind of thought time would be slowing down, but it's definitely speeding up. I keep thinking I won't have everything ready in time, though I know I will do. I have all that I need to go right now. It's just a case of putting it all together in my pack. Yep. I've had it for about 2 months already, but I still haven't loaded my pack up. If only to see how it feels. I'm not entirely sure why I haven't done it yet, but items on my to-do list keep getting in the way of put on pack in that very same list. I've got, I suppose, 2 excuses. As many of you know, I also edit Anna Huthmaker's Trail Danes podcast, and I have to front load at least 6 months' worth of episodes for that show before I go. I'm down to the last 6, which will take Anna through to the end of September, and those should all be done in the next few days. I'm also getting my own show in shape for when I'm away. My Rode wireless microphones turned up the other day and they sound good, so I won't have a repeat of my debacle on the southwest coast path a couple of years back. But there are other logistics on my show that I'm streamlining, so I've been working on that as well. The other excuse is that I want to film the contents of the pack to upload to YouTube, and I still need to work out the best way to do that. I've got so much stuff, some new, some old, strewn about my office right now, and clearing that out and isolating the gear I'll be taking with me has always looked like a Sisyphean task. I will get to it, just not right now. And frankly, whatever it's like, I'm going to make the Hyperlight mountain gear pack work for me, so I haven't felt the urge to get on with it. It'll work out, trust me. A few new items to tell you about this week. For my past 2 AT hikes, I've managed to avoid blisters each time, and I'm convinced that's because I used my Darn Tough socks over some Injinji liner toe socks. I've already bought new Darn Toughs, and I ordered the Injinji liner socks this week. Funnily enough, I'm actually ditching my new Darn Toughs for a couple of older pair. I've so many, and 2 pairs in particular are really comfortable, so I'll be starting with those. The Injinjis should be here in a couple of days. I mentioned guy lines last week for my Durston tent to help batten it all down in heavy weather, and I found some Night Eyes figure 9s, so I'll be trying them out in the garden when I practice setting up my tent again. The last thing I want to do at the top of Springer Mountain on March the 9th is to set up the tent for just the second time. I've watched Dan Durston and several others set it up on YouTube, so I pretty much know my way around it, but doing it on that first day with others around is a whole new ballgame. I remember how I felt in 2014 on my first go-round, even though I'd watched the setup video at least, 40 times. I was nervous, as were most of the people there that first night. But I did it, and this time I expect to get to the top of Springer and ultimately to the shelter there just after lunchtime on the 9th. That will give me plenty of time to pick a good spot and set up the tent without an audience. After that, I'll be good to go. The other thing that's turning up later today, I believe, is my new power bank. Looking around, it seems like the Nightcore Carbo 20,000 lightweight QC 20,000 MAH is a winner. With my podcasting and with some video I intend to do, having a way of recharging my phone several times between stops in town is an absolute must. I checked on Reddit for the best suggestions, and this one came out tops. It weighs less than 10.5 ounces with a carbon fibre shell, and it will recharge my phone at least 4 times, though I may also recharge my Apple Watch as well. It isn't cheap, costing just over $100, but I think it'd be a good investment for the trip. Right now, I can't think of anything else that I need to buy, though I'm sure that another trip to REI will net me another item I really don't need. On the training front, I've got into my feeding frenzy diet, which enables me to lose 6 or 7 pounds a week before loading most of it back on at the weekend. This past weekend, I went to Tampa Bay Downs on Sunday to watch a bit of racing, and we went to this place called, I believe, The Gallery, where they were serving an all-you-can-eat brunch that ran for 4 hours. The results were, well, entirely predictable, and we had a blast. And I even won about $150 to more than pay for the day. It was terrific. I just have a couple of more sessions with my trainer, Jake, and he has been working on mobility and balance by strengthening my core. This was especially after I mentioned to him that on my 2 previous AT thru hikes, I fell a combined total of about 90 times. Not saying I won't be falling this time, and of course I'll be shouting out the number of a fall when I do fall, but this has been very helpful to me in keeping me steady as I walk. As a buddy of mine once said, when you get past 70, you don't just fall, you have a fall. And he's absolutely right. If I'm concerned about anything with this hike, it is the possibility of falling badly that most concerns me. I've told you plenty of the things I'm getting for this hike, but if you think I've missed anything out, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know of something that could make my life out there a little more comfortable. Cheers. Yeah, I know. I need to pack my bag. I've always delayed everything in the past, and it's always worked out for me, but this time I haven't delayed everything. Just packing my bag. Wonder what that means. I'll see you next week.